Hello and welcome to the Digital Accomplice Podcast. Today we're joined by Justin and Vajko from Dialog Video Marketing. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks, Dane. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too. We have questions. I like to start out with a nice, easy one. Talk about like a recent video marketing success you've had.
Yeah, a recent one would be hearing my clients. I do it for myself, right? So I'll just say my own clients showing up to calls and saying things like, "I feel like I already know you. I like your content," things like that. Like that's the win every time for every client that we aim to get, and that's what we hear.
Right, and so it's less of a metric than more like a vibe that you get.
Yeah, that's a good way to talk about it. It's an anecdotal metric. So it is a metric. You can track how many times you hear that, and what percent of calls and what percent of clients come in from your content. But that is definitely the biggest metric that influences whether we're a success or not for us and our clients.
Right, right. So let's flip that around. What would be sort of like the biggest marketing challenge you're having right now, and how are you using video to address that?
The biggest marketing challenge I have, and I think a lot of businesses have, is visibility. And it will always be the biggest challenge. I think a lot of business owners and founders, entrepreneurs, we think, oh, everybody knows about us. People are sick of hearing of me. But that's just the spotlight bias in play. We think people think about us way more than they do. But so it's visibility is the number one challenge I'm trying to overcome every week with my content.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about that. How would you sort of categorize like all the video stuff that you're doing right now in your marketing? What are you sort of looking to do, but you haven't done yet? Sort of like what are you doing now? What would you like to be?
Oh, sure. So a lot of the video content we do is in two forms, short form content, video, and then I shouldn't say it. All of the content we do two forms: short form video content and then written content. So like blog posts or very written posts on LinkedIn and things like that, or even emails to our internal list. You can't send video emails, for example, so we have a written version. So those are the two forms of content we're really, really good at. The third we're doing more of are co-hosted webinars with power partners out there, folks that complement our business, but don't do this exact same thing. And those are effective for cross-pollinating lists and growing our email list and things like that. And I would say that's the thing we're trying to get more into the flow with. Been doing it for a few months, and there's still a few hiccups in terms of there's a lot of logistics to do when you do a live event and you want people to actually not just sign up but attend. So that's I would say the biggest hurdle to overcome when it comes to how to improve our next piece of content.
Yeah, the logistics of live events and doing more of them. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And then let's talk about AI, the big thing everyone always wants to talk about. So what are you doing with AI in your video production process? Mm-hmm. What's working there? And then what are you sort of not doing with mm-hmm. AI in video mm-hmm. production?
Yeah, the way we're using AI every day is just simply in the transcript creation. The software we use is able to create pretty darn accurate transcripts using AI. What we're not doing is using it to write client posts, or we're not taking that route. We might someday. We need to make sure that the model is very well trained, though, to get to that point. So we have humans writing the posts for our clients, because our business model is based off of creating short form content for our clients and then also writing the posts. It's removing as much friction from the content creation process as possible, to give a little context.
Yeah.
But using AI for my own ideation, not really ideation, but it's part of the ideation process, both in coming up with ideas for client topics. We use maybe 50% of the topics we use right out of the gate, and the rest are pretty junk, but we just use our own human intuition to know what questions to ask in our sessions. So a little bit of ideation help there to prepare mm-hmm. Sessions with our clients. And then I use it personally for a lot of my complex business problems and getting feedback on this is what I'm doing. Is it the best way to do it? Kind of treating it as a light consulting or a light consultant, taking everything it says with a grain of salt, of course. But yeah, that's kind of a comprehensive overview of how we use AI in the business.
Okay, great. And then with video repurposing, how much of that are you doing? What does that
Mhm.
look like for you? What's the process and the sort of input output model?
Yeah, yeah. So the video repurposing we do is not our core with our clients. We don't really repurpose any of our clients' videos because they're recording with us in the sessions live, and we're coaching them for each video on a hook and asking questions to get their insights out of their head and into video format. And then so that isn't a long format of it's, although it's an hour of recording, it would be very strange if you played that whole thing as a long piece of content. There'd be a lot of back and forth and repeating and things like that. So that's all designed for short form content output. In terms of my own content for long form to short form, what that looks like is taking clips from podcasts like this, I guess, podcast. And so taking clips and reusing that on LinkedIn or other platforms, and sometimes turning it into an email, or if if it's important enough or interesting enough, um, and even webinars, same thing.
Okay. And we kind of already touched on the sort of content performance aspect of this. You mentioned like people know you, they like you after seeing your content. So that's sort
Mm-hmm.
of one part of how it
Yeah.
performs, the ROI. Is there another part that you're looking at, measurement, like impressions, views, stuff like that? How do you kind of look at content performance in general? Is it worth it, kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. 80% of the value of what we do is in what you hear in a client call. When they tell you, I love what you're doing, I love your content, I'm already bought in, things like that. That being said, 20% of the value comes from everything else that the video can accomplish for you in terms of early signals of success. So we care most about on LinkedIn now. This is, and the whole context is LinkedIn B2B in that world. On LinkedIn, we care most about shares because those are the most rare form of engagement. If you're someone sharing your stuff, it is top notch on LinkedIn because somebody's putting their professional reputation on the line by sharing your stuff. It's not just oh, look at my friend, I'm going to share this like on YouTube. No, this is my reputation is on the line if I share this piece of content. So shares are the most important form of engagement. Then we look at next level below that, what quality of comments, not just great job, but like
Yeah.
people taking time to actually think and respond. And then after that, we look at everything else like views and likes and things like that.
Right.
So those are early signals of that the content is doing its job. That being said, the reason we only put 20% of the value of the content on that stuff is because the vast majority of ideal fit clients in the B2B world do not engage. They do not comment on anybody's content. I heard it said once by somebody smarter than me. They said CEOs don't like to telegraph their intentions, and then that applies to B2B LinkedIn content. So it's very, very discouraging to look at your engagement and say, I have low engagement, low views, until you get in a sales call and somebody says, wow, I've been watching your stuff for a year and I really love what you have to say. So this really is the type of thing where you have to play the long game and not look at the early metrics necessarily, at least for months and months, especially if you're in B2B with long sales cycles.
Right. That's pretty interesting. So, to kind of reframe that a little bit of a way, like I hear people talking about video, and I think a lot of people are like, I don't know that it's worth it. Like, I'm not quite convinced. What's like the short elevator pitch? Like, is video for B2B, is it worth it? What do you say to that?
Well, if you're watching videos, then obviously it's working. And if you're not watching videos, then no, it's probably not worth it to you. This is positive peer pressure. Our best clients are the ones who are already watching other people do video because they know that's important. I see that person, that video had an impact on me. When you think about social media, I'm forgetting the word for it. What is the word for that idea that where you have a relationship, you think you have a relationship with somebody, but you actually don't? There's a name for that. It always escapes me, but there's this concept. It's a
Yeah.
human thing. Like everybody feels like they know Taylor Swift, right?
Right.
But we don't. None of us actually know Taylor Swift. So that relationship Taylor Swift has with so many thousands, millions of people, she can leverage to book concert tickets, sell albums, do whatever she wants. And if you harness the power of that trust at scale that she's building, or that literally anyone can build with video content, not with the written content, if you harness that power, you can accomplish really big things for your business by using that power of the one-to-one relationship that you've built at scale.
Right. Right. Okay, so we've touched on kind of the different aspects of the video marketing efforts that you're doing for you and your clients. How would you say, or what would you say would be like your biggest piece of advice for B2B marketers out there who are maybe they're on the fence with video, maybe
Yeah.
they're convinced, but just in general, what's the big thing they should be focused on right now?
Well, the first thing I'll say is I don't know of a single B2B marketer that doesn't believe that video is the right next step. I think their biggest challenge is convincing the sales team or their founder to actually do it. And the sales team and founder are pushing back and saying, well, that's your job. You're the marketing team. You do something with video. And so they resort to stock footage and cheesy ads and things like that. And they struggle sometimes to get the founder and the sales team on board to actually be in the videos. But that's where the magic happens when you think about it, because 9 out of 10 decision makers in companies agree that they're more open to sales and marketing efforts directed at them when preceded by good thought leadership. All right. So that's good thought leadership of any kind. It can be a blog post, it can be an email, et cetera, et cetera. And think how much more that means, though, good thought leadership, if you as a founder are talking and educating them in a video, and then guess what? Your sales team's following up with them. How much impact is that going to have compared to, here's an article or here's something else that we can share with you. So video thought leadership is the single best tool for sowing the seeds of trust before the first person on the sales team makes an outreach. And this stuff works because video is how you build trust faster than any other medium.
Yeah. And then you've already touched on the sticking point there is convincing the CEOs and sales teams that they need to go on camera when they don't want to. They need to free up some time to actually do that. How do you approach that convincing effort?
Yeah. Well, the thing, there's a lot of, when you start talking about human emotions, like everything gets thrown at the fan now. And when you say the word video, people run for the hills. They think it's going to be a lot of work. I'm going to feel awkward. It's going to be 8 hours of grueling retakes and takes. And I don't want to be involved in any of the technical process of it. Whether it's a marketing team that doesn't want to do editing or a founder who feels uncomfortable on camera, there are so many internal objections to doing video. So pick one, I can address it. But the biggest one is I'm not sure I have time for this. I don't have time to do video. Well, the good news is, at least with our business model and the way I built my business around this, is you only need an hour per month to do video. And then, well, the next objection is, well, I don't know what to say, or I feel critical about my own content. Well, the good news is, if you don't know what to say, you have somebody else on the outside of the bottle who can read the label, because you're in the bottle and you can't read the label. That's kind of the problem we all struggle with. And they can ask you the right questions that are relevant for your audience, and you just have to have a conversation. And that part also removes a lot of the awkwardness of being on video, where it's not just you and the camera, it's you and a person. And I can go on and on and on, but literally every objection to being on video, we have solved with our business model. It's just up to people to at least have an open mind to trying something different.
Right. Okay, well, that's all great advice, and thanks for getting through the set questions. That's sort of the end of that portion. I like to then transition to a little bit more personalized deep dive on you, what you're up to, where you're headed, your background, and maybe we could start out with just your elevator pitch of like, who the heck are you, and what do you do?
So my name is Justin Vajko, and I help founders and entrepreneurs in the B2B space build their trust of their networks so that they can get better sales and leads with video. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay. And so we already kind of touched on most B2B marketers now know they want to do something with video.
Yeah.
What's that first step? I think 90% of B2B customers are like not in the market at any time. There's only this small number that are actually ready to buy. So there's this huge self-education effort that's happening, I imagine. So you're probably out there educating people. And then what happens when they like start to get close to that sale? What's the thing that tips them over to
that? 5% are in market, and any niche and any vertical, any market, so to speak, the average is like what, 5% in market, 95% out of market. So where this works is actually for both. This kind of content works for both. Your question is, where does this tip the scale? This tips the scale. I'll give you a story. Let's say you're approached and you're not in market, and you're approached by 2 different salespeople at 2 different companies for basically the same kind of product. Let's say it's a CRM software.
Yeah.
Salesperson A says, hey, you should check out our CRM for when you need one. If you need one, here's a link to book a call. Salesperson B pretty much has the same message. You check out both of their profiles. One has no content on their profile. It's just their basic profile. They're a salesperson at this team. And then person number 2 has content on their profile. And guess what? It's video content. You can actually hear them talk about this stuff. And you watch the video and you hear not just about how to solve a specific problem that you didn't realize you had, but also you watch the second video and you hear about the philosophies, why they do certain things or why they've chosen to do certain things. You're like, oh, that's actually really smart. I like the way they think. That analogy, that picture, that is the moment you're going to instantly build preference with your buyer before they're ready to buy, because they've taught you something. This seller has taught you something. So you've got an opportunity there to build preference, which is what every salesperson wants when you hop on a call. You don't want to be you don't want to be commodity. You don't want to be one of 100 options. You want to be the leading option. And the way you do that these days is by being generous with your knowledge, creating content, specifically video content. So they build a likability for you specifically, and you're setting yourself up for success when that call does inevitably happen, whether that, sales cycle is 1 month or 12 months, content helps.
Yeah. And what is your sense, to me, it's like the idea that B2B companies are going to use video to build that thought leadership and that, prime their customers. I think we're really early in that process. Mm-hmm. And I think we hit some headwinds with the economy and with AI coming in and shaking everything up. And mm-hmm. there's a lot of layoffs in marketing departments. Are you feeling that the same way, that we're sort of like we're at the starting line in a lot of ways, and the early movers are kind of getting out there, but they're just kind of having to like break through all this stuff to get there?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. You're saying, are we early stage still with a lot of this sales enablement, thought leadership, content type stuff? Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely companies out there doing it and nailing it with the content they're putting out there, including some of our clients. But yeah, the vast majority of business owners, of founders, of executive teams don't yet realize we're in the age of the thought leader. Right. Company trust is an all-time low. Corporate trust, I think it's like 17% of people trust corporations or something like that. Right. It doesn't make sense to use the old-fashioned playbook that used to work 30 years ago and that all your competitors are using and that all the biggest players are using. Why go where they've gone, and why not build a different playbook centered around human first interactions? Mm-hmm. And you can do that with video. You couldn't do it before. You can't take one salesperson and have them book 1 million appointments per week, but you can have one salesperson share a tip that's seen by 1 million people per week. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as far as the types of companies that are getting on board now and not waiting until everything falls apart before they try and play catch up. Yeah. I think about like the early days of websites where like all the companies were like, do we need a website? And they had those conversations, and then they realized, yes, we do. And they had to like get on board. I think that's the same thing that's happening now.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. It's there's still companies today. I used to design websites. Still companies today. Do we need a website? So that mentality will exist in the world of marketing across any medium, whether it's websites or videos, forever. Yeah. People who don't know what they don't know because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. Yeah. That being said, websites in the beginning were a nice to have. Now they're an essential because it's a vetting tool. If someone doesn't have a website who reaches out to you, it's an immediate red flag, isn't it? And I think, video is going to be one of those things, content in general, but video is going to be one of those things that also serves that purpose over time. If you decide to stay hidden behind this veneer and polish of a website and never share any content, what does that say about you as a company? People want authenticity. Word of the year 2023. People want to know what you're like, not just the blog post that's all shiny and polished. They want to know, what are your thoughts on this individually, you as a leader, this person in your company? How do your smartest people think? Yeah. People buy expensive services, not just because it solves a problem, but because they're bought into the philosophies of the person they're buying from. Smart people attract smart people. And if you're not doing content, specifically video content, you're missing out on that opportunity to build trust with people who are looking for a better option.
Yeah. And as companies are exploring whether this kind of model is going to work for them, do you find that it's the lower level people, maybe in marketing, or maybe even more junior than that, or maybe they're a sales director or something like that, who are advocating for video and then convincing the CEO?
Yeah.
Or is it
Yep.
CEOs that are getting it, the advanced ones, and they're telling their team we're going to do it? How does that
It's a
know?
mix. It's a
Yeah,
mix. There are some. It's never black and white, but
yeah,
there are some CEOs and founders that I know are leading the charge. Um, these are social. You know, if you look at words like social selling or whatever, they're bought into the idea of let's leverage our team's knowledge to do this. But the vast majority of times, it's this poor lonely marketing coordinator or maybe a marketing director, and they're being told you got to send more emails, cold emails, and they're like, that's fine, but we also need to do some thought leadership. And it's like pulling teeth trying to get everybody on board with a program that'll work for their time, or
yeah,
that where they won't feel uncomfortable. And honestly, it's not often a numbers game, although that's part of it. Like, show me the numbers that this works. The numbers are out there.
yeah,
It's really about, again, comes back to that human emotion, but I don't want to because it's
yeah.
uncomfortable to be on video and to put myself out there.
Yeah, I don't want to go to the dentist, but
Mhm.
people do every day.
Yeah.
So, is there like a magic phrase that you found is the most convincing way to sell a CEO or decision maker on why we need to do this?
I
What's the
haven't found a
magic
magic
words?
phrase, but I like that way you're making me think about that.
Yeah,
There's not one magic phrase. I use a lot of different phrases for a lot of different objections, right? Whether it's time or ROI and things like that. The biggest one that I've settled on is the one I shared earlier, which is if somebody visits your profile as a decision maker in a company and they're a potential buyer, they're vetting you, because that's what buyers do, by the way, these days. We don't
yeah,
ever buy just, oh, this is who you say you are, let me just buy from you. We vet the heck out of you, especially the more we spend. So if somebody's visiting your profile on LinkedIn and they don't see any good content, or the last update was from 12 months ago when you had talked about a job change, and then they visit your competitor's profile and they see content and it speaks to them, it solves a problem for them, and guess what? It's video content, so they get to know you. Which one is going to build preference in that buyer's mind? It's just that simple.
yeah. Okay, so let's assume the audience that is listening to this right now, they're like, okay, I'm finally convinced. I agree. We need to be doing this at my company. What are the next steps for them? How do they kind of proceed down this road of working with a company like yours and rolling out a video content marketing strategy?
Yeah. So video content marketing strategies are going to be all over the place, depending on what kind of agency you work with. If it's a videographer or videographer team, they're going to advocate, okay, we're going to come in an 8-hour, do an 8-hour, 2-day shoot. We're going to interview people, hear the topics, and it's going to take 6 months to plan. That's extremely taxing. I don't recommend that, because you're probably not going to do it. And you spend a lot of money on something, and it's going to give you this beautiful polished video, but honestly, it's overkill. People don't expect polish anymore. And on the other end of that spectrum, you have the freelancers of the world who will give you exactly what you need in terms of a video edit, but they're not going to give you kind of strategy for how to use it and how it's actually going to help with revenue of your company, which ultimately is why you do any kind of marketing. And kind of in the middle is where we sit. We're not just editing, and we're not just doing the shooting. We're doing full spectrum. So I can't speak to every other alternative out there, but I can say I've built my agency around the idea of removing as much friction as possible, because video is 80% about the emotion of it and 20% about, well, let's just share the good stuff and then the rest will come. So we remove all the friction by helping clients with topic prep, interviewing them in a once a month call that's on their calendar, so they don't have to make time for it. It's there every month. And then we get to work editing it into short form videos, and then writing the post and publishing for them, and then doing performance report every 3 months. And that strategy is based around the idea that you want to stay top of mind with your first degree network on LinkedIn. Now, if your strategy is something else, like I want to bring in qualified leads through a one-time event, you might want to think about webinars, or you might want to think about, working with an SDR, or having whatever. There's all sorts of strategies. But if your strategy is, I know that if I lead with thought leadership to my network, to our buyers, then this is the best play, because you take that short form asset, it can live on LinkedIn and it can live on every single other social platform in the mix with all of your other content. And it is adding to the value of your company over time as you share your philosophies and share your why and share various tips about how you solve the problems for your customers.
Okay. And so if we're liking what we're hearing and we want to move forward, what is you already touched on like an hour a month kind of a model
Mhm,
for time commitment. I'm guessing there's some upfront work that needs to happen, and then like
mhm.
the costs
Yeah, there's a
ongoing for this.
onboarding,
What does that look like? The
yeah.
whole soup to nuts process.
Yeah, so the onboarding is 90 minutes. We get to know you, get to know your audience, know you, and then do a trial video. In our first call, we would have had in our sales call, discovery call, we would have made some equipment recommendations. So we help you set up that equipment in that 90-minute session. This is all done remotely, and we use your phone. So there's no special equipment other than the recommendations we make, and then we get the onboarding done, and then your first monthly session is scheduled. Um, that's the time commitment, and then every month for an hour. I don't know, what was the other thing you said?
Pricing.
Oh,
Is
pricing
this
starts at
can I even
$900 a
afford
month.
this?
Yeah, it's $900 a month. We have solopreneurs on that plan, individual single entrepreneurs, and we have everyone in between, B2B boutique firms on that plan. Then we goes up from there, 1,300, 2,400 a month, and from left to right, basically, you're looking at more volume of videos and more platforms where those videos are then distributed by us.
Right. And it sounded like, if I got it right, that you're doing all the posting for the
That's right.
clients, so they don't have to
We're
worry about that.
removing all the friction. There's literally all we want our clients to do is show up to a call once a month,
Okay.
share their expertise, and they're done.
Yeah, that sounds really great. Um, if someone wants to try this and they're not sure like what the results will be, and I know, who knows, like you can't guarantee a result, but
No, never.
there's a tendency towards probably seeing some sort of results. What should people expect to see?
Mhm.
Like when am I going to
Yeah,
start to know that this is working?
it's a great question. So one fun fact about when you do video content on LinkedIn, your first video will explode with your network. Always does. Everyone's just so excited to see you, whether they're a buyer or not, and they're going to engage with that, and they're going to like, and they're going to comment. So you're going to see a massive spike on your first video, and then you're going to see a slight drop off over time as people then see, oh, this person's making a thing out of this. It's not a one-time deal. That's normal. So that's in terms of initial early results. But the long term is going to be different for every industry, and it depends on how good your sales process is. If your process is, this is all I'm doing, you might see results 9 months, 12 months. You might see results never, because what this depends on is doing other things beyond just video content. You got to be able to meet with people. You got to network. You got to actually do some outreach yourself. And that's always a clarifying point I make in our onboarding or even in our sales. Like, are you doing anything else? Because this is not a silver bullet. This is something you add to the mix to make what you're already doing that's already working more effective. So
Right.
I'll put that caveat in there.
Yeah.
That being said, if somebody has a process, they got a sales team, or they have a VA, or they themselves are prospecting on LinkedIn, they're being social because it's a social network, and they're starting conversations and commenting, then this will see results anywhere from 3 to 6 months, a little earlier than that. My own story was, when I started doing this, I was not doing video consistently on LinkedIn. And I realized, well, I should probably eat my own meal here, so to speak, and do content for myself. So within 3 months of doing it every week, with a mix of other content, with me being active on the platform, I saw a group of 12 qualified leads in a 45-day window open up after 3 months. Just like that. It was very strange. I had one lead every month, and then boom, 3 months later, it was like raining leads. It was very interesting. So that's one case, but everyone's different. We had one that, for them, the first month they were able to book one client, the VC. First 2-3 months, fully booked an event that the year prior they had to cancel due to lack of attendance. All they did was promote it one time with a video. Obviously, that's like best case, right? But if you're not promoting something, how are people going to know? So it's just that simple. Sometimes you just have to promote it. And they did that with the video, and it worked really well. And that was 2-3 months. And then, months later, they got engagement from partners that were important to them in their space and shares. And that was a win for them. And so it's different for every industry.
Yeah. Right. And I imagine it's different for every person too. And I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the idea of the face of the company and subject matter experts, right? There's CEOs who could, obviously be the face of the company. That makes a lot of sense. But then there's subject matter experts who may feel a little uncomfortable about being the face of the company. In some cases, the CEO may not like that this person's getting all this visibility and they're not the face. And so like, how do you think about that personal brand, and like, how does that work? Because like, if I'm a subject matter expert and I'm building my personal brand and then I leave that company, I've kind of built this audience and visibility that I think I would take with me. So
Yeah.
like, I don't know, talk to me about like those, how do those issues pop up? Have they popped up for you?
No, they haven't popped up, but I'll say this. If you have somebody on your team that you're jealous of getting the attention, you're afraid of them getting attention, guess what? They're going to move on at some point or another, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Would you rather that they do this for you now or not do it at all? Either way, they're moving on.
Right. Yeah. What about the CEOs that are, too busy to be the face of their company, too busy to grow their company?
If you can't afford an hour a month, I don't know what you're doing with your life. I'll just put it that way.
It's a rationalization for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, you definitely touched on the emotional human objections issues. And like, I've seen this and a lot about this is I don't want to put myself out there, all that. Yeah. And so for me, that does seem like the really the only barrier that really
is
exists.
The biggest. I tell people all the time, the biggest challenge or biggest objection, the biggest alternative, I should say, to what we do is that middle school brain that exists in every one of us, doesn't matter what age or what specialty, where we go, I don't want to be made fun of. I don't want to put myself out there. Our biggest challenge is overcoming that middle school brain in our prospects who for whatever reason in their life have decided that video is not for them.
Right. Okay. So if our listeners are ready to put on their big boy pants and their big girl pants and they want some help with this, talk to them about engaging with you and your company. What would be the best way to explore with you?
Well, we have a couple of options. The first is if you're sitting on the fence and you're not sure about any of this, you want to hear more, you can visit me, find me on LinkedIn, Justin Vajko, Vajko. I'm the only one on all of LinkedIn. And then that's a great way to stay in touch and let me know how you found me. I'll give Dane a shout out if you mention the podcast. And then the next way is if you're interested in going a little bit deeper and seeing our pricing and stuff we mentioned, you can visit our website, dialogwith.us, dialogwith.us. Has pricing, has examples, has FAQs, all the things.
Right. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for sharing your insights and your background with us. It sounds like you're in exactly the right place for video and for marketing. It's such an exciting time as a 30-year video practitioner to see like videos finally having our day in a way.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Now we just gotta, you and me, we got to figure out how to crack that nut of convincing people. It's worth putting yourself out there.
Well, what convinces middle schoolers, I think is the
there
question,
you go.
Right?
Maybe that's because that's what we're talking to is middle school brains. Yeah, you're right.
Bribe them with Taco Bell or something. I'll give you a Baja Blast if you go on camera.
Yeah, that's right. I'll send you a free Baja Blast in the mail.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Justin. This has been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you, Dane.